Who was she? Who was she meant to be? I had thought at first it must be the Corn Maiden, but observing her, I realized she had come in a form different from what I expected, something other than what I had seen in the quilt. I sensed it was not she, but someone else, someone whose identity I was supposed to guess, the Sphinx. In her very being lay the conundrum. "Tell me who I am," she seemed to say. She remained motionless for a period, as if giving me time to make my guess. Then she lifted her hands outward from her sides, and they met slowly over her head, raising the veil as the covered fingers touched above. I was both shocked and excited as I realized that under the veil she was completely naked, and I could see the gleam of her thighs, pale and marmoreal in the moonlight, with the dark, mysterious cleft between. I thought she must remove the veil. I thought she must invite me, make some gesture, some signal that I was to come to her, to take the place of the other figure, but when the hem of the drapery had lifted almost to the waist, it immediately dropped again. I rose and took a step forward, revealing myself. I looked to the place where the man had been standing, but he had disappeared. Then the woman figure inclined her head beneath the veil, posed for an instant, turned and stepped from the grass onto the strip of dark earth, into the shadows of the cornstalks, then into the corn itself. She was gone. That is from this book, Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon. And this was the fourth and final read for the fourth and final week of Horror Mayhem, hosted by the Bookish Bryants. The theme for this week was folk horror, and this was really the only thing that I had on hand that would fit the bill. It's a longer book than normally is chosen for these types of challenges. It's over 400, or reading weeks, I should say, these themed weeks. It's over 400 pages, but I'd been meaning to get to this for a while anyway, and it fit the bill, so I picked it, and I really enjoyed it. Thomas Tryon was a actor originally, who had a little bit of success in some TV shows and things like that. He appeared in, The Cardinal, directed by Otto Preminger, and after that he retired and decided to become a novelist. He wrote his first novel, The Other, which was published in 1971 and made into a film directed by Robert Mulligan in 1972, and that was a runaway bestseller, hugely influential, kind of part of the whole horror boom in the 70s and 80s, spurred on by stuff like, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, that kind of stuff. Although these days it's kind of a little bit more unsung, along with this follow-up, his second novel, Harvest Home, which was published in 1973. This wasn't made into a film, but it was made into a TV miniseries in 1978 called The Terrible Secret. It was The Secret of Harvest Home. Both of these books were huge successes. I mean, as you can see there, 5 months on the New York Times bestseller list. Both this and The Other were very, very popular, very influential horror novels. But these days they're kind of unsung. Not a lot of people know about them. I think this book hasn't even been reprinted. It was recently reprinted, I believe, but for a while it was out of print. And I believe The Other was only available as a reprint from New York Review of Books. So it's interesting that these very successful horror novels from the early 70s kind of went unsung. But I think they deserve a or at least this one anyway, because I haven't read The Other. I have a copy of it, and I've been meaning to get to it for a while. But I think this deserves a look. What's interesting about this is that this was kind of published when the whole folk horror thing was kind of just taking off. And folk horror was really more of a British phenomenon, with movies like Witchfinder General, The Wicker Man, Blood on Satan's Claw. But the thing that's interesting about this book is that it's a very distinctly American folk horror, using sort of the American countryside and things like that to delve into these depths. So the plot, it's about a married couple, Ned and Beth, his wife, and their daughter Kate. And they've recently decided to move out of the city, to kind of leave the rat race and to move to the countryside, to someplace a little bit more idyllic and sedate. And they find this village called Cornwall Coombe, which is it's exactly what they're looking for. It's pleasant, it's idyllic, it's full of sunshine. farmland. It's a beautiful place, and they quickly decide to move in there, and they're accepted into town. They move in. Ned decides to pursue his true vocation of painting. It's this beautiful idyllic place. There's a beautiful church. Colonial houses. Everyone seems friendly and neighborly to one another. But of course, as things often go in these novels, things don't turn out exactly the way they seem, and Ned slowly discovers the secrets that are related to Harvest Home, which is the mysterious harvest festival that is held once a year in Cornwall Coombe, and learns that the locals of this place tend to take their harvest festivals and their beliefs a little more seriously than others. So this was a really, really interesting book. It's not. It's very surprising in a few ways. One, because it's very, very slow. I mean, it's a big book. It's over 400 pages. Pretty small text. It's very, very placidly paced, which isn't a bad thing. I think it actually works in the book's favor, because these sort of scenes of in fact, like the first 100 pages, really, nothing overtly horrific really happens. It really just kind of eases you into this sort of idyllic, autumnal, colonial American place. It's very pleasant, and it sort of eases you into the daily lives of the people in this town very, very effectively, I think. Everybody there, has a distinct personality. Everybody knows one another. The sort of proceedings of the town are presided over by this old woman known as the Widow Fortune, who is sort of like this sort of a sagely, grandmotherly type. Every small town's got one. Everything seems perfect and beautiful and just the way they wanted. And then that idyllic nature is broken up by these surprisingly nasty, cruel, shocking scenes. Where Ned slowly discovers what's really going on here, and sort of realizes that the close-knit communal nature of the town is a lot darker than he originally realized. I thought that whole reveal was done very well. Obviously, if you've read books like this or seen any movies like this, if you've seen The Wicker Man, you can probably guess the kind of thing that's happening here, which may hurt the novel for some people, because obviously it means that the twists that are revealed throughout the story are somewhat predictable, things that we've seen before. In my case, I actually thought I didn't think it hurt the novel very much at all, because to me it was more about the journey rather than the destination, and there's still a lot of mystery in the book as to what exactly specifically is going on and what all these symbols mean. And the journey getting there, as I said, is a very I don't want to say a pleasant one, but it's very, very beautifully written, as you probably got from that excerpt there. It's very, of course, obviously for a book like this, it revels in kind of the descriptions of nature, about the close-knit community of the town, about the various characters who live there. And surprisingly, I didn't find any of it boring. It actually moved, for what it was, for a very sedately paced book, it moved very quickly, and was especially more intriguing for the darkness that's slowly revealed. And in fact, I think it also works very well for the story in that it's almost like a seduction in a way. The main characters, Ned and his wife and his daughter, they're seduced by this town, by the people here. Nothing is immediately wrong. Everything's it's not like it's some paradise. It's not like overtly. It doesn't have that sense of being like too perfect, I mean, there's like a town gossip, there's scandal, there's stuff going on, but you really get a sense of why the characters would feel sort of seduced and drawn to this place, and then by the time this sort of darkness hiding underneath this these idyllic pastures are uncovered, it's almost like it's too late. They've gone too deep. They're too invested into the town and these people. And I thought that was really, really well done. That sort of slow, gradual seduction. And one other thing that I really liked and thought was really interesting was that you would think in a book like this that takes place, in a very like rural, colonial type town. That all the people would kind of just be like slack-jawed yokels, like redneck stereotypes. But I thought it was actually really interesting in that they're not really. I mean, of course, there is a bit of that. But a lot of the characters are surprisingly shrewd and intelligent. They're very kind and friendly. They have a lot of useful things to share. One of the characters, Justin Hook, he's sort of the darling boy of Cornwall Coombe, and he's a very like strong, burly, masculine farmer type. But he's really kind, and he loves his wife, and he gets along with Ned. The widow Fortune is just smart as a whip. She's acerbic and funny. And she's just but she's also very like matronly and kindly, and she knows how to cure what ails you. It's just very again, it's that sense of seduction, of understanding sort of how they can get themselves so deeply into this situation. So it's not just kind of a just over exaggerated depiction of rural life. As I said, it might not hold a lot of surprises for modern readers because of these types of folk horror stories are pretty well worn these days. I didn't mind that. But in the things that are revealed as to why, as to sort of the secrets of the town and all of that, it delves into some, I think, potentially problematic gender politics. I can't explain without giving anything away, but I could see some people having issues with some of the gender politics in this book. I didn't mind it. I just sort of thought it was a really weird, interesting, exciting story. I had fun with it, but I could see somebody maybe having issues with that. But obviously, going into older horror novels like this, you kind of have to expect something of that nature. But I think aside from that, I mean, I thought it was a really entertaining book, really rewarding. And as I said before, I really liked how it kind of lulls you into this false sense of security, much like the characters, where everything's like very peaceful and really nice and pretty. And then there's these like shocking moments of just savagery and violence and just uncanniness and creepiness that just seemingly come out of nowhere, and it's like a bat to the face, and they're done really, really well. There's several set pieces in this book where I was like on the edge of my seat, just like, oh man, like just like where's this going? This is so good, So yeah, I'm honestly shocked that Thomas Tryon hasn't really been, or has been kind of like relegated to obscurity in the last few decades. And nobody. I only found out about these because I follow all these horror blogs, like Too Much Horror Fiction and Grady Hendrix and all that stuff, who have both written about this and the other. But if it wasn't for that, I probably would have never even heard of these books. So as I read in a review of Grady Hendrix of this book, a third of our sort of horror literature history is kind of missing, is kind of forgotten about, and I think that's a shame, because I thought this was a really elegant, intelligently written, very savage book. The ending too is great. The ending is like, it's like one of those perfect shock endings, like that you might see in like Twilight Zone or something like that I just really loved. It was just so well done and so creepy. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I definitely look forward to reading the other, and I think I have another of Thomas Tryon's books, Night of the Moonbow, that I would like to get to at some point. So yeah, and I'm really glad I decided to finally pick this up and read it for Horror Mayhem. And yeah, so that is my final review for Horror Mayhem, Thomas Tryon's Harvest Home. I really enjoyed this reading event, and next month we're doing June on the Range, which was organized by Michael K. Vaughan, which is all themed around westerns, and so it's not as heavily structured as this, but I do have quite the stack set up, and I'm going to try to get through as many western books as I can, and I'm very excited for that, and I greatly look forward to talking about that with you. So yeah, that was my final review for Horror Mayhem. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, like, comment, all that stuff. Let's chat about books. That's what we're here for, right? So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.